Hello, hello, uh, hello again. Back with another stream here live. We are back with another stream, and it's a great weekend for me. I had a lot of rest actually, and yeah. How is everybody's weekend going? How is everybody's weekend going? I hope it's going good. So, today we are live, and I'm gonna explore a little bit on this thing where I'm basically going to explore the things that are a little bit of web standards, as you can see. So it's more about security protocols, and one of the main security protocols being used today is OIDC. And what OAuth is, and again, here is what I understand, and here is what people have been saying and all of that. But here is what I understand of OIDC. Is OAuth is basically a protocol which is open authorization. So it's a protocol used for authorization, saying that my service wants to connect to a certain service and access resources on that. Okay, so as an example, one of the classic examples is probably like a photo editor. So I might have a, so let's say I have a print shop. I am something like printer, and I can give an connection to Google Drive and say that, okay, you can connect to your Google Drive, or you can connect to your Google Photos. I think they're the same, not? I don't know. Yeah. So let's say we can connect to Google Drive, we can connect to Google Photos. And once you connect to that particular service, my application is basically, authorized to access those information on behalf of the user, right? So you have your service, right? Printer, and let's say Google accounts, Google, which has different services. So let's just say Drive and Photos. And we cannot do elements and stuff like that, right? I probably have to give it a, yeah. Nonetheless, we can simply say user. So this here is Google Land. This here is application. And then there is my user, which basically says that, okay, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna promote my video, which I forgot. which I forgot. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So, yes. So this particular application says, okay, you upload some photos. If you upload some photos or docs, and I will help you print them. The problem here is that the user always has to upload them, right? So the user might have documents on the drive or might have photos on the photos, Google Photos. So how do I quickly access those? So I gotta download this and then upload it here. But instead of that now, so what Printo is saying is, hey, I'm gonna ask Google to give me allow access to those drives. So there's also email, right? There's also email that you have. So this is drive. Okay. So this is email. This is photos. There can also be something like, let's say, location service, right? Can also be location service. So now, okay, just give me 1 second. I'll be quickly back. Okay. So yeah, basically, then what happens here is that you can ask Google Drive to actually, give the information from the drive and from the photos and all that. But how do you get access? Right. So this is locations, right? So how do you how do you get access? How does Printo get access to this drive? So one of the things is that you can ask the user, hey, give me the username, password, and I'm gonna do a behind the scenes login for you. The question is, would you give your Google ID and password to me? I don't think so, right? That is not how it would be done. So instead, what happens is that there came up a new protocol called OAuth. I think there was OAuth 1.0 also, but then there is a different protocol which came in, which is OAuth 2.0. So which is now the standard of how to do this thing. And like basically when we say OAuth, it's for open authorization. Okay. So as the name suggests, it is used for authorization. This is a very important part, the security part, which is authorization versus this thing. So how the flow usually happens here is that, so printer might have something like, a button saying connect with Google, right? Something like that. Okay, so it'll have a button like that, and usually what happens is, so it'll have a button like that, and if the user clicks on this, it basically will take you Google Auth provider. So there has to be some sort of server which actually handles your Google accounts, right? So it would take you back to that, and basically take you to that means that it's gonna actually display the Google login page. All right. So as an example, we can go to neatcode.io, one of the websites that I use for DSA. So I'm logged in now. I'm just gonna quickly log out here. So you can see this is neatcode.io. If I say sign in, it says sign in with something. By signing in, blah blah blah, and all that. So if I say google.io, let's look at what happens. So it actually opened up in a new tab, but that's fine. But here it says accounts.google.com. It is not what to say, it is basically not your this thing. Okay, so I wonder one thing in here. Yeah, so they're doing it also in the back. So okay, if I try to log in with GitHub, it will redirect, let's say a Google account already exists with the same email, please log in with Google instead. So this is a very wrong thing to say, I would say. Why don't you just allow me to log in with this thing? But I mean, that's how it is, right? So whatever, really doesn't matter. In here, it just says that, okay, I can do that, right? It says I can do that. Okay, so what basically happens is that as you saw, this is one of the redirection URLs which you have to call with response type saying, okay, I need a code, I need a client ID, or this is my client ID, which means you have to register. This is my redirect URL. So you redirect, once you do something, you redirect it back to me. State is nothing more than it's a verifier basically. Okay, so it's a verifier which says, okay, I wonder if this is a JWK token. So if I take this entire thing, let's actually do that. Fine. So I cannot do that. Okay. Let's just say URL is this. Okay. So you can simply take what is the length of this thing. That's gotta be easy. 61 URL 61. Yes. So let's say params is this. Dot split and crossing construct with this. Good. So if you look at params, you have a couple of them, And basically, if you look at context URI service and stuff like that, I'm not quite sure what this is. So you have scope, that's fine. But here is your state. Wait, why it didn't break on that? I am pretty sure I did something wrong here. Like I might have deleted this thing, but this is basically the state, right? Why can't you let me? Okay. Just copy everything here. Okay, cool. So now this thing, if I just go, if I'm not wrong, it has to be a JW token. JW2IO. If I go here, if I go here, okay, it's not a JW token, but whatever, like what is enable autofocus? I don't know what this, I guess it's for, anyways, not the main thing, right? So, yeah, basically this is what happens, right? So it now you give back the stuff, and you know, you get the code and everything, right? And it basically returns back on the callback. I forgot what it actually sends back, but it returns back on the callback, and it returns back something with which you have to make another call, which is for access token. This here is where, you know, nonce token. It returns an ID token, something basically called an ID token or access token, I think it's called. It basically returns you back with that. And once it does, using that token, you can essentially go to any one of the drives. So that token usually that token usually has the permissions, the scope that, okay, so you can access the drive and you can access the photos. You cannot access email, you cannot access location, you cannot access anything else that Google is storing for you. You cannot do that. The only thing you can access right now is your these two things, right? So, and then what happens is that when you say returns the ID token, and okay, using that, you can basically access this. Okay, so in here, this particular flow is basically called that, okay, your auth, open authorization, right? So this is what open authorization is all about, and how you can authorize and how you can authorize for accessing an external resource hosted on a different application, right? So here Google has its own provider. You already don't have to do it. So maybe to access drive, you know, so let's say that you have your own drive and somebody else wants to access it, and for accessing that, it basically has on top of it a provider like Clerk or a provider like Okta, things like that. I think Clerk is an integration platform, not a provider, but anyways, so what happens is that you can actually have your authentication handled by somebody else who's the provider, and when your third-party application tries to access anything on your drive, first of all, with the user permissions, what would happen is it would actually go down here and then first go to the provider, say, okay, can you give me this? If it goes to the integration would go down to the actual provider and say, can you give me the tokens back and everything. So that is how usually it happens. That is how usually it happens. Okay, so this is more or less the OAuth flow. Okay, now people said that, okay, yeah, since I can get back the information saying what is the you know, like since Google kind of already tells you that, okay, if you get back the access token, it basically means that, okay, your credentials are correct. Or if you go back to the callback, it says your credentials are correct. People started using this as authentication also, saying, okay, I'm just going to validate the user by what it is, right? And that kind of becomes a problem because you're mixing two things together. So a new protocol came in, which is basically built on top of OIDC, built on top of open this thing. So I don't quite remember. It's OpenID Connect, yeah. OpenID Connect for authentication of users. So authentication and authorization, the difference is authentication basically means who you are, and authorization means what you can do, right? So since people started, what is the term? Now they're wrongfully using this protocol to actually authorize users, and everybody has its own way of doing things. Somebody came and said, okay, I'm gonna just create another, like the web standards came in and said that, okay, I'm just gonna implement OIDC protocol on top of open OAuth. And what it does, as far as I understand, again, like this is how I understand what OpenID Connect is. It's basically adding a different scope to the call. So there's something called scopes, which means that, okay, so Google would have certain kind of permissions, right? Permissions. So let's say read drive, write drive, delete drive, let's say something like that. Okay. Read location. Okay. Delete location. So you have these kind of resources and granular permissions that are associated with it. So these are called scopes. These are basically what you can do in the application. So when you actually do a call for this, so if you look at the URL in here, if I just go back to the URL, so one of the things it sends back is this, right? So till here. So yeah, I forgot what is this. We can do a URL decoder. I think it's space, yeah. So here it's basically saying, okay, give me space. So here OpenID, then you have the email and the profile. So what people are saying is that, okay, I'm not going to give you any information, any access to the resources, but what I'm going to give you instead back is that, okay, I'm going to give you an OpenID thing scope, which will allow you to access the user info, email, and all of that. So what will happen is you will only have access to the email, you will have access to the profile pictures, things like that, maybe the location things that you have already made public as part of your profile, not your location history, but just your current location which you might have updated. So taking all these things into account, it would generally try and create create this thing for OpenID Connect. That's basically it. That's basically it. Yeah. So if I actually work with Xcali, not Xcali, draw IO, I quickly wanted to actually have proper notes of these things. So I'm gonna quickly say auth pointer. Now there is one more thing that I gotta software engineering. No, GitHub. Just something called notes, if I'm not wrong. Cool. So in here, if I look at security, OAuth. So OAuth flow. Yes. So there are a couple of terminologies. Resource is what you want to access. Resource owner is the user who's going to give you the permission. Resource server is basically the server on Drive or something. Client is me who's trying to, do this thing. And authorization server is something which is, giving you the grant. So here are a couple of flows that are there. Authorization code flow, then there's implicit flow, then there is resource owner passport credentials flow, and there's client credentials. Okay, I think. Okay. So I'm actually creating the graph itself. Okay, so flow diagram is not there yet, but anyways. So this client redirects the resource owner to the authorization server to initiate authentication and authorization process, right? So here what happens is that, as you can see in here, the authorization server, upon user authentication, redirects the user agent, usually the browser, back to the client's redirect URI with two very important query parameters, the code and the state. Okay, so the code is a short-lived one-time credential that the client will later exchange for tokens. So this is very important. And the state is a parameter which is kind of like a nonce or a number used only once or something like that, which can verify that there is no CSRF. This is mainly to prevent CSRF attacks and preserve the request integrity or session information. Okay. Now the client takes the authorization code and makes a server-to-server post request to the authorization server's token endpoint to access something called an access token. Access token is something which is a more long-term thing, but still it's not that much of a long-term thing, and it might have certain. So I have to check again. But this is a JWK token. Most usually this is a JWK token which you can see exactly what all details you're saying. Okay. So using the access token, you would send back that information to the different servers, and those servers would then see the access token and say, oh, okay, you have a proper access token. So it might have the capabilities to validate the access token themselves. It might go to the authorization server saying, can you authorize it for me? Is the token correct? It really doesn't matter what happens on the authorization or the side from which we're trying to access data. What happens is that authorization code is something which, access token is something which they are expecting every time that you try to access something on their side. Okay. So today we are going to explore this part. And if I just go with the particular flow in here, so let's say OAuth 2.0 flow. Let me just rename. So here is your. So let's actually do this sequence diagram, some sort of. So you must have a user, an actor, and before I actually do it, I would like to have some sort of references. So if I'm not wrong, some of the references that we can talk about is actually I googled this up right before this I feel is the most awesome one, which is almost 7 years ago on Octadev. So this is one of the great YouTube videos that I would recommend watching. Yeah, so this is one of them. Then you also will have OpenID Java Brains. Okay, so let's quickly see at Java Brains where exactly the playlist is. Security. Apparently I cannot find security. I think this is it. Yes. So these are the three things that you should see, in my opinion. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just gonna give a, to this playlist. I feel that should be enough. So in here, where is security? Yeah, security basics. So Spring security basics 2.0. Brains. So yeah, I mean, I'm just giving the playlist, but once you open it up, you should be able to figure out that, okay, which are the ones that you should be following. All right. So here, I quickly wonder if I can actually add, so there was something where you can add a YouTube, this thing here. Sorry, not sure. But anyways, couple of other things maybe I can, give access to this. Previous notes. So I can save this. And then, just give me 1 second. Yeah, cool. There's one more note which I had. Reference. Oh, okay. So I had also the RFC stuff, right? So this is a really good protocol flow right here. So you have an authorization request. This is a resource owner. Give it a grant saying yes, basically. Then there's an authorization grant from the client to this thing saying, okay, I'm giving you a so with this request, basically it would say, okay, I'm giving you a code. I'm giving you all these details. Can you give me back a code? And it would actually give you back a code on authorization grant saying, okay, you are authorized because the resource owner said yes. It's a short-lived one. Why don't you send it back and you will get an access token back from it. And using that access token, you can do this kind of things here, right? So let's quickly do this, and we of course need ChatGPT to validate some of the things that we are doing in here. But this is a web application. Can I mean, so let's just show a box in here. Your web application. Okay. So you have this, and you have this in here. So let's call this the client. And here is your here is your server, right? And this right here would be your provider. Auth provider. Okay. So what happens here is that you might have a button, and I have a button. So you might say login with Google, something like that. So this looks better. So you have a button. So let's ungroup it. Then let's just. So what happens is that so I can easily say the user can click from here to here. User clicks on button. Right, so once user clicks on the button, what happens? Once user clicks on the button, what happens, right? Button, what happens? Okay, so sounds fine. Sick warrior, please, hell is us. Hidden game of the year. I'm effectively programming in something. Private gen is doing something, which you don't know. It's fine. Cool. Let's go back to the diagram and say login with people. Basically, what happens is that for us specifically, we would be doing this sort of thing. Okay. Where's the arrow? We would be doing this sort of a thing where we would make a call to. So it can be a get call, it can be a post call. I don't know. We can actually see if we have done something similar. So of course I have done this before. It's not that very first time I'm doing it. But yeah. This is more for revision stuff and try to have things a little bit better, honestly. So if I go to the login controller, does it have the routes? It doesn't because it's Google, so it's a get mapping which says login. Okay, and then you say callback. Okay. It's API auth this thing. Okay, and this is another get mapping, but here it has to be a post somewhere. Whenever you it has to be a post whenever you ask for token, right? So API, what is it called? What did I call it? For some reason I called it API auth Google. Okay. API auth provider login. Let's just say I do that. Once I do that, the server processes your request and it basically needs to return back your status code. With URL as location. All right. So this is usually what happens, right? So if I just say this is the state, I'm not quite sure if I have to do something else. Bring forward. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I hope this makes sense now. So in here, the server sends you back certain details, right? So let's actually put those details here. The server sends you back a couple of things here. So parents, what is the response type? After that, the client ID. Then you would have, so I can simply, go back here, login controller. This is for, yes. So, I just copy paste these here. This is fine. Client ID is fine. You can send a client name also. It's not a, again, this is not an mandatory parameter. So you send the client name, you would send the redirect URI. I have to send the scope. And you have to send the state. You also can send a prompt. So I think for prompt, it always gives you a prompt saying, okay, select the thing in here. So if I just Google up Google OAuth documentation authorization URI, if I say okay, so as you can see here, it gives an example for PHP and all. Maybe this is a little bit better. Yes, so this is exactly what I feel I want, right? So I guess this can go in one of the references. Okay. Google OAuth documentation. Okay. So in here, as you can see, the client ID, redirect URL, response type is usually code for web server applications. I believe there is also other flows like machine to machine, something like that, where backend to backend calls are happening and things like that. So that's a different flow altogether, and we are not working on that. We are just going to explore a web application flow. Well, where is my, okay, so you have the scope, which is required. Access type, it's recommended. So, okay, so we don't have indicates whether your application can refresh access tokens when the user is not present at the browser. Valid parameters are this thing, which is default value and offline. Okay. State is represented. So let's look at state. What exactly is this? Like important. Specifies any string value that your application uses to maintain the state between your authorization request and authorization server response. The server returns the exact value that you send as name equals value pair in the URL query pattern, so the direct URL. Okay, so you can use this parameter for several purposes. For example, such as redirecting the user to the correct resource in the application, sending nonces. Nonce is nothing but number only used once, number used once, or number once, number used once. So basically, it just means kind of a token which can only be used a single time, and then it just goes out. Okay, and the more important part is here that saying, okay, you can validate the response to additionally ensure that the request and the response originated in the same browser, providing protection against your attacks such as cross-site request forgery. So usually what you can do is you can say that, okay, I have sorry, I have a call, like you can encode it into a JWK token saying, okay, this is a nonce, this is when it's gonna expire, which also means that, you know, you cannot replay things. So you can take the number and just, you know, omit it, these kind of things, right? So what happens is that it basically says, okay, if you have generated this at like let's say 5 o'clock, so you cannot use the same token at 7 o'clock. You only have 5 minutes to yeah. Okay, so that's basically it. Login, hint, and all of that. Prompt again, none. Do not display an authentication. Must not be specified with other values. Consent, prompt the user. Select account, prompt the user to select and this thing. Okay, so this is what I feel. Okay, so this right here is there. So there is no client name. I don't know why I put client name actually in there. So I'm just gonna remove that. But again, it's query pattern, so it just you know, ignores. If you're sharing something, we can only see Nobia's screen, not actual screen. Okay. Maris, are you still there, by the way? Can you not see my screen? Is that what it is? Let me just check on my phone. That's very weird. Wait a second. Why is that? Hey, I hope now you can see my screen. All I had to do was I had to reset my text, not reset my desktop, but just like, you know, yeah, reset my desktop. So that's basically it. The actual screen is not visible. It should be visible now. Should be visible now. Yeah. Yeah, somehow OBS settings just reset something or the other whenever I restart my computer. But anyways, okay, I guess we did a lot of stuff which didn't make any sense to anyone. Awesome. Okay, but basically let me go through. I think like since my voice is there, people would be understanding at least what I am exploring today, right? So yeah, here are a couple of the documentations that I feel, and I can actually share. So let's actually go here and let's replace this with an empty space, this with an empty space, this thing with an empty space, put this thing with space, this thing like this. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, I think it makes sense now. So these are some of the references that you can see now. I mean, I'm just sharing it on the chat if somebody is interested. So these are some of the references which I feel is quite important. It will also be in the it will also be in the actual repository where I'm just gonna, you know, use to explore things. Yeah. Okay. So now, in here, we're also doing this particular flow, right? So, yeah, client name is not required, what I understood. So you need the response type, you need the client ID, redirect URI, scope, state, prompt. Prompt is also not required, but I was facing some issues when I was, exploring exploring this the first time. So let me just put it here. So this is what we do in like basically in the URL authorization URL. These are all the things that we send as query pattern. Okay? This is what I generally wanted to talk about. Okay. Yeah, so I think it has to have, okay, so you have this, right? This is accounts google.com/o/auth3 auth, right? This is what you do. You can pass in the access, sorry, the scope, the scope, the access type, which is not required, included grant scopes true. Response code is important. So then you have the state, which again is very important. Redirect URI and then client ID. Okay. You can just redirect the user to this, and then Google prompts the user for a consent. This is generally how the flow goes through. All right. So if I go through the diagram one more time, sorry. This bothers me a little bit. Okay. Anyways, okay. Just a minute. It just bothers me some. Okay. So what happens here is that I don't want to do that. Okay. So just can I have a web page or something like that? Yeah, a home page or something. So let's just say a page, right? So it gives a Google account page, right? So it's basically for login. Login and what we call the resource owner consent or authorization, right? So this is what usually what we are looking for. So this is what usually, what you're looking for, because without this particular consent, you cannot, move forward. So yeah, okay, this is what it is. Perfect. Now let's keep going. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes. So now, since you have the Google account, this thing in here, right? So it basically does a redirection, and let's just, I think let's just show the page here. So let's just show the page here. Okay. I mean, it really doesn't matter where we show it. The user needs to accept it. So the user now, why don't I? Just tell me what to do, man. Okay. So user hits accept or whatever. I don't know what comes through. So if I just go to neat code, let's just sign in. What comes up for Google specifically? What comes up? Okay, so you basically have a choose an account, right? For GitHub, what comes up? Choose an account. Okay, so it doesn't let me, but anyways, but you get the idea, right? So I think it's called a prompt, which is more of a correct term to say, right? So user logs in with an account. So you might have different, a Google account and all of that. You log in with one of them. Basically, that's what it is. Yeah. Okay. this is what it is. Okay, so you have this page. Now here's the most important thing. So now this right here is not your application. It would be a little bit wrong to say this is your application. So let's move this here, move this there, move this there. Let's move this here. I may do not go with this diagram, but okay. I hope this makes sense. I hope this makes sense, right? Okay. Now, basically what you can do here is okay. This right here is on Google domain. This is very, very important. We do not accept Google credentials. Google itself accepts its credential. We do not say that, hey, give the credentials to me and I'll send it to the Google behind the scene, which used to happen before. I think Yelp and all. You can see the first video that I was talking about from Okta. I think the guy's name is Nate something. Nate, yeah, so Nate Barbatini, yeah. So this is a very good video, I would say. So you can see this entire video. It's 1 hour long, but it's absolutely worth it. And anything worth it is not 5 minutes long, honestly. Okay, mostly. So what you're gonna do is perfect. Now let's keep going. Thanks. I think I already read your chat. Anyways, thank you for confirming. How are you doing today? How are you doing? Okay, so here this thing, now what happens is that, so you have given a state and all of these things. It goes to the where is my arrow? It goes to the provider. Right from here, it goes to the provider. Right? One thing we can say here is provider application, and yeah, so we can see that, I suppose. Yes. Can I just bring it front? Yeah, okay. Yeah, cool. This makes sense. This makes sense too. So here, the call is routed to the auth provider, usually called authorization server. Okay. This is basically what is happening. Okay. Now, more important thing is, I'm gonna put down the volume a little bit low. Yeah. So now what happens is that, okay, now what happens is that you can simply now say that this auth provider, if user has given access, if user has not given access with its end of the flow itself, if user has given access, this would make a call to the backend. What I mean by that, you have provided a redirect URI. This is where it would make the call to. So if, like, technically speaking, you would host your redirect URL on your application server itself, but you may have hosted it somewhere else. So wherever it is, it will basically go there. Okay, it will basically go there. So let's think in that way. Okay, this here, can I just make it a different color? So yeah, can I make this a different color also? Okay, I'll later on figure out what kind of color suits best. Okay, so now this guy redirects to the direct URI on the authorization URL. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So before this, you have to do setup of your client. You have to say, okay, this is the client. This is my client name. It will generate an ID for you. It will generate a secret for you. It would explicitly generate an ID and secret for you because it's a backend application. Okay, it's a backend application. So secrets can flow with security, so it would work with that. If it doesn't, if it's already a UI client, you have to explicitly mention that. And just in a second. Yeah. So it usually doesn't work with secrets, and there is something called PKCE, which the browsers implement, and PKCE is nothing but a proof of key concept exchange, something like that. So I'm not very familiar with that, so I can something I have to explore in that. But yeah, that is something also, like, you know, we might be exploring. So now redirects to this, but it sends something explicitly called the code and the state. So it sends you back these two things. Now, as I mentioned, state is something that we are passing in the first place. So what happens is that whatever query params you have passed in the authorization URL, it automatically, you know, forwards it to the backend server, to the authorization provider. The authorization provider would read the code, the state. Sorry, the state. It would send you back the state along with the code, along with something called a generated code. Okay, now this generated code is more of a short-term thing that has the short-lived token. So this code is going to be used in further calls by our web application to basically, you know, to basically get something called an access token. An access token is usually the something which would say, okay, you can now use this to access different other application, you know, like services or resources to whichever the user has granted permission to. Okay, this is what usually what it is. So now once you have that, the first thing you would do is validate this thing here. So validate state and makes a token request to the auth provider. So what it usually does now is request for a access token. Okay, or I think it's called an ID token some sort. Okay, so let's actually go back to the Google this thing. Did I actually add the reference here? So here, handle the auth2 response. The auth2 response, yeah. So error equals access denied or something, but you might have the access. So okay. By clicking on this request, read only view from meta files in your Google Drive and read only access for your Google Calendar events. Okay. Okay, so let's actually do this. Network. I'm just gonna remove everything. So explicitly look at, I'm going to Google APIs.auth, and I'm giving the access type as offline. That's fine. Included scopes and all of that is fine. So let's actually quickly see about what all details are being sent across, right? So as you can see here, wait a second, the client ID is client ID. This is the most important thing. It says redirect. So 3A I think is colon. So auth example 2, and it just returns you back to the code. And you're asking for a response type as code. Okay. So if I hit this guy, okay, then why the heck you're telling me that, okay, it's an open thing? It's very weird. Can I just turn this entire thing into a dark mode? Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry for flash banging. Application loading. Actor click on login. App redirect to login URL provided by checks authentication or with valid. Just stop. Application loading. Actor clicks on a login. App redirects it to login URL provided by checks authentication. Auth provider redirects to the application with valid token. Just start. Based on the authentication, app does. Based on the. Are you still there, Amiris? Can you just repeat the second question? Sorry, the first question. Kind of, I didn't get the flow. Application loading. After click on the login, app redirects to the login URL provided by the auth provider. Checks authentication. Auth provider redirects to the application with valid token. Yeah. So if I understand your question correctly, Amiris, if you're still there, your first question is the application loads up. It sends a call directly to the, so it has to be something like this. This is your web app client in React, let's say. Okay, so you have a React client and you make a call. You make a call to auth provider. Auth provider gives you back prompt. And from here, you basically go back to the auth provider. And if all good, auth provider returns you back with the code. Correct? Is that what you're asking? And based on the authentication, app does authorization for content loading as RBAC. And I didn't quite get this part also, honestly. Based on the authentication, app does authorization for content loading as RBAC at app level. I'm sorry, I really don't quite get what are the two questions that you've asked. If you can frame them a little bit better, I can try and answer it. Yeah. But coming to the point of, I feel that you're asking me that if you can directly go to the auth provider using the client and you just skip the middleman in between. Yes, you can do that. I think it's called, like I mentioned, you can already do that, but you cannot have secrets. So basically what happens is, if I just finish this part, request for an access token. In here, send the client secret. So this is what you have to send back. I don't know if it actually does, showcase in here. Oh yeah, it actually showcases right here. So it needs a client ID, which you already sent before, but it needs a client secret. It needs the code that you have, generated. If you have got back, you have the grant type, which again has to be set to authorization code if you are doing OAuth2. And then you have the redirect URL, which says that, you know, for your application, you're redirecting to a certain client side thing, right? Code is this thing which you got back: client ID, client secret, redirect, runtime authorization. This thing, I don't know if it's actually required or not. So usually if I say this thing, prompt, sorry, not prompt, droplet. Do I have anything? Yeah, I have it back here. So if you see, this is the access token. So you give the client name. Again, I don't know why I gave the client name. I must have found it somewhere. You give the client ID, you give the client secret, the redirect URL, the code, and this thing. Redirect URL, I just gave it as whatever was there. It really doesn't matter because I don't use it as far as I understand. Okay, as far as I understand, I don't use it. So most important thing is, if I go to Google login in here, so this is a callback. You handle the callback, you know, basically generate this access token URI, and you make a call. It has to be a post call, and the data has to go in a form encoded value type. The content type has to go in that way. Okay. And it would get back a Google response thing. So if you look at this, you would get back a couple of things, inside which there is a very specific thing called access token. So access token is something which will help you make further calls to actually get back data. Okay, so we'll actually explore these things today. Hopefully we'll actually explore these things today. I hope that answers your question. I mean, okay, so sorry, I didn't answer your question yet. So coming to the point of this thing in here, something like that. Okay, so you have to send the data in this way. Okay, cool. Okay, I don't know what message it says. This message retracted. Maybe you deleted the message. I'm not bother with that. Yes, cool. Now the question is, what happens, right? Now this particular thing would be returning you back with a access token. This access token is usually a JWK token, which can be used in subsequent calls for getting some data. I really don't know what data, but for some data. In our use case, we would be sending a call to the user info endpoint, which will give us the user information, the images and things like that, which will give access to that. And the most important thing is in this particular case, what happens is that, okay, so most importantly is that how does your UI keep session with you? Because your backend did all the work, right? Your backend did all of the work. So how does your user keep a session with the front end? The backend keeps a session with the front end. That is very simple. Once you get the access token, and once you get the user info, from here to here, generate a JW token, send it for Vite secure. So this is what generally it happens, right? So you can send it as a cookie, and every time your Vite makes a call, it's gonna send that particular cookie down with your request, and it's a browser feature. Fetch is not a JavaScript. I think, if I'm not wrong, fetch JavaScript. It's a it's from V8 or Web API. If I'm not wrong, it's a Web API. It's a Web API, yeah. It's a Web API, not a part of V8 engine. This is a crucial distinction in how JavaScript environments work. So V8 is like the engine responsible for compiling JavaScript. I mean, probably nowadays you can do jet compilers and all that, and you can generate the native executables before you actually start working. But yeah, whatever. Okay, so this I feel is a good thing in here. What I'm going to do is export. I can also publish a link. Wow. Okay. That is what it is. So I hope. Okay, so I still didn't answer your question actually. So you, I don't know if you're still there. So your question is, can I just cut the middleman out? The problem here is that the moment you actually go for the access token, you need to send a client a secret. And that's a giant problem in web app, because now your secrets are right there in the browser for any user to see. Even if you do send an encrypted call and all that, people can be like, you can send SSL connection, you can send encrypted data over the wire, but again, it generally is passed down and this thing in the query patterns, right? So even with like encryption and all of that, there is a very high chance that there can be middleman attacks and all of that. So one of the things you see here is that for JavaScript web applications, if you check this, it's gonna be a little bit different. Okay, it's gonna be a little bit different. So it still sends these kind of things. It still redirects. Okay, it still redirects and all of that. Java prompt, Google prompt and all that. Okay, so then this is where you handle it, right? So you see an access token response, you always get back the access token response in the UI itself, because it's a redirect and not actually a call, right? So you would get the access token back. So you straight up get the access token, by the way. Okay, you straight up get the access token without a code exchange. This is what, if I'm not wrong, is generally called the implicit flow. Okay, it's not usually this flow. So again, you have a refresh token and all of that. This is a very purely Google workflow for your UI side and not the backend side. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. So I always prefer doing a backend side redirection, because it helps you just have some sort of thing. Again, somehow everything is on top of me. I'm not sure why everything is on top of me. Cool. I honestly don't know, and I honestly am tired of setting up these things again and again. There might be something in here that I don't feel there is anything in here that I did this. Okay, save them. Okay. So application loading, I hope I answered that correctly. I mean, you can do it, but then here you would have to not work with secrets, and one of the steps is already omitted out, so you don't have to do code exchange and then an access token. You directly get an access token in here. I think it's called the implicit workflow. Okay. Based on authentication, app does authorization for content loading as RBAC at app levels. Based on authentication, app does authorization for content loading as RBAC at app levels. I didn't quite get the second question. Based on the authentication, app does authorization for content loading as app level. Again, if you're around, please if you can try and frame your question a little bit better. The second one, the first one, I hope I already answered. Let's quickly go back. Yeah, this is basically what's happening here. And if you actually go with this RFC, so again, the RFC is this. There are authorization code, there's implicit, there is client credentials, there is resource owner password credentials. So if you go for implicit, it's basically for JavaScript clients. Yes, the implicit is code flow optimized for clients implemented in a browser using a scripting language such as JavaScript. So yes, like I mentioned, you can actually do it with this certain thing. Yeah, cool. Hopefully we could. Cool. Now the question is, we have for almost half an hour, 1.5 hours. We have for almost 1.5 hours, and I hope that we actually understood what we're gonna achieve and do. Yeah. So let's quickly. I wonder if I can somehow embed this in a read. Can I do that? Doesn't have a command mode. Command key. Okay, it doesn't have a command mode. It seems like that. So what if I say ng source is equal to this, and then okay, it cannot of course do that. Okay, it needs to open up rendering and all of that. So basically, let's quickly get it as a image, right? So in here, can I go and export this? Export as I think PNG is fine. So you can only need transparent background. You can give it a shadow, and you can give it any border width. Auth flow. Okay, we can copy this guy. I hope we can paste it and it figures out what to do. Okay. I wonder how it's gonna look. I mean, that's fine. Let's not waste time. So, yeah, we spoke for quite a bit, and that's how the implementation is gonna be. So I feel there's a time for a quick break in here, and if any questions, let's go over the questions now. If any questions of what we're gonna do. So this is how the thing is gonna be. So here's what I'm planning. to do. I'm gonna create my web app in React. Okay, so it doesn't really have to be good. It will have a button somewhere, which is Google login. Okay. So it would go to my backend, and then in here it would go to it would go to something called let's give me a second, I'm going to text. Just a second, I gotta respond to this guy. Okay. Cool. If any questions, we can take those. I'll take a quick break and see if we want to continue today, or maybe I'll start another stream, honestly, because I don't want to keep my stream on BRB for an hour because it's almost time for dinner and everything. So let's see. Okay, so let's see. Yeah. Cool. Let's go on BRB for now, and then we'll come back and decide what exactly we have to do. Cool. Okay, we are back. We are back. And yeah, so now the plan is basically to start kind of implementation of what I've done before. And yeah, so here's some of the to-do things that I have done. First of all, I have to do a Google GitHub client setup. So I'll start with Google and then, extend it to GitHub. You can also do Facebook, but I started with Facebook and the UI is so shit I didn't want to do it. So probably don't care anymore. Set up DB for user persistence. So I will be storing the user information on my site so that I can cache some of the things. One thing I haven't mentioned here is, so we can actually mention the setup blob store for storing the user image. So the reason why I want to store the user image is that it's going to actually give you a public image, and if you make too many calls, it's going to give you 409, which is rate limiting, right? If I'm not wrong, rate limiting is 409. Rate limiting HTTP status. Yeah, too many requests. 429, my bad, sorry. 429, not 409. 409 is what? I wonder. Conflict, okay. So you're trying to say the same kind of information that you already have. So yeah, 429 is a let's say on a retry after header might be some blah 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 and so on. So it's called this thing. So I hit this particular issue, and the main thing that I'm going to do here is that I'm going to cache the image on my side. And when I say cache, it's not on a CDN or something like that. Okay, that setup is different. I'm going to store the image on my side so that the user, when they make a call, when they load up, I can show a profile picture, which is that whatever image you have uploaded on your client side. And if you don't have an image, it's going to show a very stub image. And later on, again, this is an exploration, so I'm not going to do these things in a real application. You might give the option for the user to actually upload an image, and you have some sort of thing where you say, okay, if it's uploaded, that is when you say, can you now show what kind of thing like you're gonna go with. So this is what it is. But yeah. So data flow, we're just saying that way. Yeah, okay, cool. So this is about the data flow. Okay, cool. I think we are good here. I'm gonna quickly create a repository, and maybe what I do want to do is before we actually go, I do wanna do the setup for the DB persistence and setup for the blob storage. Okay. So what I'm thinking now is user persistence, right? So for user persistence, what I'm thinking is some of the things that you can do here is some of the things we have to do on the user persistence side is, I think we can actually continue this after this thing. So maybe after 1 hour or so, I would restart a new stream, and I'm gonna go dinner now, and I'm gonna go have dinner. I'm gonna go for a little bit walk. Health is also important, so I'm gonna go for a little walk, and then I'm gonna come to this thing. And very interesting shout out to Aniket here. He's one of my ex-colleagues and friend, and he's quite good with software engineering, and he has left a comment in one of the posts that I had just mentioned here. So that is not the post. So yeah, this is the post basically on my homepage, and here he has mentioned, I think you should also cover the difference between remote introspection using opaque token and local introspection using JWK, which use standard JWT. Opaque tokens are nothing but your randomly generated strings, the kind of the code that you have seen. There are benefits to both remote introspection and JWK using locally. And also why sometimes, although it's an extra network hop to identity server to verify the token, still it's important. This is something I have not also, I know on a very top level, so I will explore this a little bit more in details. So really Thanks. This is also something which I will explore later. Still a black box for me. This is a very interesting point which you mentioned. Thanks. At some point, gonna explore this also. Right now, it's a very basic setup of logging with Google and how to work with authentication auth from my server to my client side, to my client server. Yeah. So a huge shout out, because it kind of makes sense. So remote introspection using the OPIC token. OPIC token are nothing but, it's not JWT, so you cannot validate it. So it has to go to the server to validate it every time. And it's just a network hop, and identity server is something which is basically another term used in OAuth. And even though it's, as you mentioned, even though it's a network hop, sometimes it's very important to always go to the identity server and say, oh, is this token valid? Is this token valid? But yeah, so I'm not going to go in that right now. Okay, I'm going to go in that right now. Cool. Okay. So yeah, as of now, what I'm trying to say is that I'm gonna log off now. I'm gonna end the stream here. I achieved what I wanted to achieve, at least get in a headspace where how I want to make the flow work. And then like I mentioned, I'm gonna do this thing. Okay, so it's a backend. Backend is gonna call to a provider, which here would be Google for us first. Okay, then when Google sends back the code, so this is the code, we would make another call for the access token, and hopefully it returns us back with that access token. After that, we're gonna make another call, the user info with the access token, and it's gonna send you back the user info. It's going to send you back the user information. Okay, so once it sends the user information, what I do want to do is, so I don't know how to do a database, so I'm just going to do it like this. GB versus user info. Well, there's also a blob store right here. There's also a blob store right here where I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to store any kind of image information, profile pic, all right, and returns the cookie. Returns the cookie. So this is what I'm gonna try and set up as of now, and let's see what happens. Okay, and after that we'll try and explore more stuff which says, okay, like exactly how I can extend on this, because the next thing would be that, okay, how can I how can I do CSRF on this side? CSRF on the backend side we already do with the state. Usually it's a nonce that we use. So this particular thing, and the second thing is also where I want to figure out something like course. So this cookie thing is very important for course. And another thing that I want to do is have some sort of a API, which is like profile API, get user /me profile API, which is behind auth token. So what happens is that if I land on the MePay, if I land on the dashboard, it's gonna show my details right there. And if that details is not there, or if my token is disabled, or my token is expired, not disabled, my token is expired, or the cookie is not there, it's directly gonna redirect me to a 401. the homepage to log in. So this is also something that I'm gonna try and accomplish today. So let's see what we can do. And yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for joining. I hope it was an informative session. I hope it was a session where we understand exactly what we want to do, and this thing. Again, this thing here is very weird, honestly. So maybe I can push it down. That helps. I'm honestly not quite sure what exactly is the issue. So maybe it's an issue with one of the filters, right? So if I say color collection is off, okay, I feel it's all about the color correction. No, it's not. Okay, anyways, we'll figure that out soon. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll try to have another stream right away after this. Let's switch on the color correction and all that. Yeah, so we'll try to switch back. We'll try to jump back to another new stream where we try and work on the implementation of this, where I say, okay, how do I wire up all of these components? And I have a backend, I have a DB, I have a auth provider, I also have a React application, and how can I just do these things? And I know one of the things that you can do is you can probably just use something like Clerk. Yeah, authentication and user management. So again, can you? Okay, so more than authentication, this thing and blah blah and all of that. So it messes up with the. Yeah, it messes up with your this thing a little bit. So if I just say this is the entire thing, but here if I say off, that's weird actually. But anyways, nonetheless, okay. So yeah. Welcome. You can create your application. This I feel is one of the aggregators, I would say. But yeah, waitlist, user profile, sign up, and all of that. Organizations you can have, and then you can also have some sort of billings and stuff like that with Clerk. So it's pretty good. I think the free tier is also good, where you can have almost 10,000 active users. No charge for users who sign up but never return. Pre-built components, custom domain, no credit card required. But then you have $25 per month and all those. But again, I don't get punished for your growth. Yeah, so I'm not gonna use anything. I'm gonna hand wire everything and see that how it works. Okay, so yeah, whoever tuned in, thank you so much for joining. And I'll catch you again soon. Okay, thank you.